Hey guys, welcome back to the Confused Gentleman podcast. Today we have Kip, WD, and myself, Christian. And today we're going to talk about something that goes on within not only in our world, but I think everybody's world as it comes to mental health. I think many people know somebody, if not themselves, struggle with mental health in some scheme. And I think the big thing for us is that when we talk about it, we talk about it respectfully. So we're actually going to have Kip. He's going to tell our story about himself and his life, and we're going to have WD. We're going to ask him some questions throughout. But again, guys, just be respectful, and let's listen to what Kip has to say. So, hey, Kip, what's your story about this, man?
Well, what's going on, guys? First of all, thank you for letting me sabotage the show for this episode. This is something I've been wanting to say for a very long time, for about 2 years now, to get it out in the open. Partly one reason why I wanted to start a podcast in the first place is it would give me an avenue to discuss what we're going to talk about without necessarily looking somebody in the eye, even though we're looking with each other. It's completely different in a virtual setting versus one-on-one with somebody. So my story revolves around my depression, basically, that started really strongly about 2.5 years ago. But as we'll figure out, or as I figured out, it's been going on for about 4 or 5 years. And it took one event to trigger me to start looking for help. Okay. So that point in time, if anyone listening follows me on Facebook, so most likely, family and the close friends, a few weeks ago, I put up 4 pictures. And of those pictures, I said something along the lines, each one of these represents a significant moment in time for me. And one of the pictures was me laying on the couch. I was at my parents' house. It was October 29th, 2018, right before Halloween. And I was laying on the couch and my son was laying on me asleep. He was only 6 months old at the time. And that picture was the turning point for me.
Why is that?
It was probably the lowest I've ever been. A lot of it has to do with becoming a new dad. So my son, my firstborn, he was born in May. October is when I kind of started noticing that I need to get help or something's not right. I was struggling since August, trying to figure things out, trying to see what's going on. Why is this? Why that? I couldn't come with answers. And then that picture kind of forced me to start searching in the right direction. And the reason being is because when I look at that picture, where some people would see joy or excitement or the new fatherhood, you got this awesome new baby with you, I felt nothing of it. And myself, I could see it in my eyes of the photo. I just wasn't, it was nothing. So I ended up getting help, started seeing a psychiatrist or psychologist in December of that year. But what we discovered was I was essentially having parts of postpartum depression as a new father.
Right. I was actually going to mention that. It sounds like something like a mother would feel postpartum. Yep. 100%.
Yeah. So there really was no rhyme or reason, but that was the event that caused everything to trickle down. And as I've talked with my therapist, it was like I was juggling all these different balls, and I was doing fine. Things were going good, a little hectic at times, but when you threw that other ball in there high, they all dropped, and that's when everything fell apart for me. For the first 3 months that my son was alive, to me, he was just this thing I had to take care of and feed and wash and get dressed. That's it. I had little to no affection. I didn't really care. I was happy to go to work. And it was weird, right? And I assumed at the time that, okay, this was a major life change, right?
Yep.
It's going to take time to adjust. I know that my normal routine of life was not going to be the same, and that I've got to just let this thing kind of go through and let it happen and, figure out what we got to do.
Right. You thought it would be like you'd catch up to your feelings sooner or later.
Yeah, I figured something would click. Maybe just the mental stress of having a new baby was getting to me, and things will get better as time moves on. Time heals all wounds, just all that stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
So we started getting into, went through the summer, and for those listening, remind you, I'm in the healthcare field. I have my own private practice, so I'm running my own business. I have a new baby. I've been with my wife at this time. We were together for 5 years. Been married, but we've been together for 7 or 10. So there was some struggles in the marriage, but I think that was due to the complications of the new baby and everything else, right? Business, marriage, kid, myself, it just all blended together, and I was just spiraling out of control. So to fast forward a little bit more, we get into, towards the end of the summer, we're starting to September, and things aren't getting better. I distinctly remember just, again, not caring. I don't care about that he can now roll over. I don't care that he can starting to play or he's starting to get an attitude. It's like, I either wanted to go 10 years in the past to relive everything, or go 10 years in the future just to get me out of this funk. Right. And I go, okay, that's not happening.
Right. You can't time travel, believe it or not.
Right. So I started doing some independent research and just, what is therapy? Because I've never seen a therapist. I know people that have, trying to figure out what is it you do? Who do you go see? How do you find a good one? And I kept thinking, okay, maybe I should do this. I should do this. And I just kept dragging my feet. And I'm like, okay, so now things are starting to set in of maybe some embarrassment or some insecurity.
Even some shame sometimes. Yeah,
because I even threw the idea of do I tell my wife or do I just start going? Well, that's probably not a good thing either.
Right.
So I hemmed and hawed that for about 2 months. So then again, going back to that picture, I took that picture. I'm like, okay, it's time to do something. I talked with Natalie, and she was nothing but supportive.
Awesome.
Which took a great relief right out of the gate.
Oh, of course.
I'm sure you guys had those moments with your wives, maybe not to this severity, but stuff you don't want to tell them. And when you do, it just lightens up. It makes, it's a relief. So she seemed kind of confused. She wasn't sure, she goes, well, you can always talk to me. It's not that easy. People, you don't always want to talk to your loved ones about issues that you're having, right? You want to, and you want to keep some secrets or some, you still have your own personal self that you got to deal with that you keep hidden from everyone else. Mm-hmm. So yeah, nothing but supportive. She goes, do what you got to do. Whoever you want to see, it is what it is. And so I finally took the leap, set up the appointment, and I went for one time in December. It was awesome. So my first message to whoever may be listening to this is, if you think you need to go, just go for one session and see what happens. Because after that first hour with the psychologist, it changed the projection of where I was going to be going forward. I went into that session with hesitation, with trying to think, okay, do I put on some type of act? Mm-hmm. Do I be 100% truthful? Mm-hmm. Do I just let it all hang out and go with it? So after talking to the psychologist, we didn't get into much detail in the first visit. Obviously, they're trying to understand what's going on with me. I'm trying to explain. But it was great, and I was looking forward to it. So I started regularly going then in that following February. I had to wait like 4 weeks before I could get an appointment. And then I went twice a week for like 6 weeks, and then once a week. And I've been consistently going now ever since that. Now, granted, I only go like once every 3 or 4 weeks now, but I got a handle on things, or starting to get But what's been strange through this whole time is not the story of going through the depression or not talking about the depression, because few people knew I was doing it. Obviously, my wife being one. I think I told you, WD, at some point.
Yeah.
So there was very few people that knew I was going. None of my family knew. Not my parents, not my brother, not my aunts, my cousins. And if we all get together for Christmas, there's 35, 40 of us at any given time, and we all live relatively close to each other. So we're familiar with each other's lives, pretty knowledgeable. So nobody knew. And I had this secret that I was going with for 2 years until I start talking now, as people are probably going to start listening.
Well, there's a certain stigmatism behind someone going to see a therapist, correct? That people think, they're crazy, they're wacko, they're not right in the head, but that's not the case.
Right. And I think it speaks more to your courage to take care of yourself, even dealing with those stigmas, with everything, what people are going to think, because regardless, you said, I need to take care of me for my boy and my family, and definitely myself.
Exactly. And that stigma of mental health needs to go away. And you got to, as our podcast title is, the world's confusing and you can't answer everything yourself. Mm-hmm. And you just said it, Christian, like, I had to get better for my son because he depends on me to live. Right. So he can't just, go off to college and then, Kippy's going to be fine. I'll worry about him later. That's not going to happen. So I had to do something. And again, there was other aspects of my life that were suffering that needed to be had attention drawn to them as well. So what I found interesting after, while being in therapy, was the bluntness of how I would talk with people and then thinking I was joking, which I always found comical. And to give an example, if we're family, they look at my son and say, "Oh, he's just so fun. Isn't he just great? Don't you have just fun?" And I just like, "Not really." And they figure, and they will laugh at me, and we just play it off, and funny. Yeah, he's great. He's awesome. He's fantastic. And I just put on this front, but no one inside, I'm like, I just told you the truth and you think nothing of it.
Right.
And that speaks to greater volumes to how I kind of lived my life all growing up. And this is where things really start getting fun for me going through therapy, was kind of discovering that I put on a front for a lot of people. I think it's fair to assume, and I would think any of my family listening to this, there's a certain idea of what you think of me as. When you think of Kippy, who is Kippy? I would be very monotonous. I was just mellow. I was easygoing. I went along for the ride. I agreed to everything. I never caused drama. I never caused arguments.
When they never played Warzone with you.
They never played Warzone.
For real, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Hey, you guys never got on the Call of Duty lobby with me. We're mean. But it's funny that it took me moving to Georgia to start realizing it. And when I moved down there, I had no supervision. I had nobody to impress or try. So I was able to start getting out of my shell. WD was one of my first friends down in Georgia.
I'm sorry.
The first class was, he was a horrible lab partner. He never showed up. I think our second lab, he decided to sleep in or not show up. So I had to text him, and here I'm this college kid working by myself, and the teacher comes in over trying to teach me how to, how you use a Bunsen burner in physics.
While Dubs is taking a Z, he's like, yeah, bro, I'll get to that later.
I'll be right. So what did you think of me, or what was your impression through the years about me, Dubs? Because we became roommates. We were roommates for like 2.5 years.
Yep.
You got to know me, and I'm going to say this confidently. You know me better than a lot of the people up here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I first met you, it was in biology.
Was it biology? Okay. Yeah. Biology.
It was biology. I thought you were a quiet dude, you know, you had that persona of, it's just like, okay, I'm book smart. I kind of just study, go home. That's what I do. And then I come back to school. I don't party. I don't drink. I don't have fun type, thing, like go out and have activities.
Accurate.
But obviously getting to know you even through that quarter, we started to hang out, go to Chick-fil-A, go to the Marietta Diner at least 5 times a week.
One of those.
Just getting to know you and all that. You are very an extrovert. You come off as an introvert, but I believe that you do have. You want to be social. That's. And I'm not sure why you had to put that up. Maybe it's just a sacred, like, oh, hey, I've moved to Georgia. I'm from Michigan. I don't know anybody down here, but, my fiance or girlfriend at the time. And it's like, I just want to make sure, people like me, and
right.
they can find out the true me, and, the barriers come down.
So I would just think of myself more as an introvert or an extrovert, but I do love to talk and conversate and gossip and have those close friend relationships. I'm not an extrovert in the sense of like, I'm going to go out to a club. It's about being comfortable
with people. It's, you got to find someone, we're like-minded in the fact of sports. Apparently not as much in religion.
For those of you listening, if you don't know that reference, go back and listen to episode 3.
Right. But sports, politics and all, we see eye to eye and a lot of that. And that I think that, allows for barriers, because I was kind of the same way. I'm more of a quiet person until I get to know the person and we get close. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm actually, a cool guy to talk to, and, I'm easygoing type thing.
And I think part of that, and what you said, how you initially thought of me, I think is accurate as how many people think of me up here. And I think I'm that way is because I was scared to be opinionated. I was scared to speak up in the fear of being ridiculed or being a joke or being, just again, having that attention drawn to you and you just made to look a fool. And not that there was any harm with it or people joking at fun. And it's taken me a while to understand the difference between sarcasm and joking around versus someone who's actually being insulting.
Right.
I've also am curious for myself if my schooling and the education led me to that as well, because I went to a Catholic grade school, K through 8. I never got in trouble. I was always the loser in the front of the line, going to the cafeteria or whatever.
Why do you say loser?
That's the general stereotype. The cool kids hung out in the back. And you're right. That's just, what's the head twitch for, Christian?
Hey, all I'm saying is I was the cool kid in the back, baby. So,
but I would, like on the playground, I would never, be the rambunctious one, or I would never, I just kept to myself and, like you said, did my work, got good grades, and did what I was supposed to do. So I wonder if that played a role, because the teachers weren't mean. They weren't the nuns that would slap you with rulers, back in the day. But I do wonder if that played a role in the discipline of how I grew up.
Well,
and why I got to that.
It's interesting you say that, Kip, because I joked that I was the kid in the back, but I really wasn't. I was more middle to front, if I'm honest. But me growing up, I got bullied, and I think that played a lot with my psyche growing up, with the fact that when I got bullied, it was like being pushed and shoved. So I kind of wanted to be a bigger, stronger guy, so I didn't get pushed or shoved. So then I really kind of played football. You know what I mean? And I didn't really play football to do anything except hit people. And I even wasn't good at that. I really wasn't a great football player, if I'm honest, but I just knew that if I did that, then someone would think something of me. You know what I mean? So. Yeah.
And I was also my friends in grade school who are to generalize and stereotype, my closer friends were of the quote unquote losers / nerds, whatever. And I hung out with them in school. Out of school, I would always hang out with the quote unquote cool kids. So I should have been in the middle of the line, but I was definitely towards the front. And so I was definitely friends with everyone. No one had ill harm towards me. No one talked bad about me. I was just the lingering kid. And that continued into high school. High school was probably even worse. I had 3 people I talked to in high school. I couldn't wait to get done with high school. I thought it was ridiculous. But high school was a joke. But so to jump back on track to more current day and present day, it's funny what you learn as you start talking, because these psychologists there just start asking open-ended questions. Like you said, why do you feel this way? Why do you think that? What would so-and-so think about you saying this? And all that, stuff. And it really does get you thinking. So I took the approach of, I'm just going to be 100% as truthful, as honestly as I could with the therapist. And I told them that when I started go, if I start swearing, if I start saying weird stuff, if I start making you uncomfortable, please let me know. But it's the only way I know how I could talk about this without hindering what I need to do. And both my therapists were like, cool, I'll swear with you. And they did. And it was fantastic. I mean, so getting, like I said, I had so many balls I was juggling, and I internalized everything. I'm a people pleaser. It's what my job duties are today, is to make people feel better. That's the literal definition. I'm always trying to, help people and be assistance to them, be a good person to them, whatever it is. But that actions come at a cost. And that cost is the internalizing yourself, where because you are looked upon or you are seen by others as the easygoing, the mellow, he'll just do what he needs to do. After 21, 24, 25 years of you living that quote unquote definition, it is hard to break out of that. Because when I would start coming out of my shell and to start exposing my real self, like what I learned as a Georgia, I would get questioned of what's wrong? All right, why are you in a bad mood? What are you craving for? When I'm not, I'm actually trying to do what I've been wanting to do forever, but it doesn't work.
Doesn't that go back to, as a man or a gentleman, you're not allowed to be emotional?
I'm sure that played a role, but I don't think it played I think for me, it was more of that preconceived definition of who Kippy is. And I use Kippy because that's how, I'm referred to up here. My dad's name is Kip. I'm Kippy. So I think it was that bigger, this is what Kippy does. He doesn't go outside of the bubble. And I would see my cousins. I would see them go from a change or a maturity level or something different where they bucked the system. People got alerted, okay, so-and-so has grown up a little bit. We need to respect their decisions and stuff. And I felt I was still down. Right. And I couldn't just get to that next step. So it took, like I said, Georgia put a lot of role, and I know I keep bouncing back and forth in time frames, but my wife played a very important role in me breaking out because she was the one that could see from the outside in. She knew what life was like in Michigan. She knew what life was like in Georgia. She could see the outside influencers on my life. She could see the family, the friends, and the experiences I've had. And she pushed me and challenged me in ways that I would never have done it myself. Right? And I told her that, when I proposed to her, I go, you have pushed me to greater limits that I didn't think I could achieve. And that's just with me getting to know myself. That is nothing to be materialistic. That is not, getting the better job and getting the bigger house and doing this or that. That is just straight up, you made me be able to critically, to understand and learn critical thinking skills and how to think for myself and to stand up for myself. It was a really good thing. And that's always been a constant with us, and it's always a good. I mean, I would assume you guys have constants with your wives, maybe not the same as me, but there's something that holds you two together that brings you back. Mm-hmm. So the depression took a toll on me at my office, in the marriage, with Kai, with friends, with family. And it's funny, we just did the video game episode, that was my escape from reality. Yeah. When we talked about it. Yeah. I used video games to ignore every little thing that was going on. And it sucked because as much fun as we were having, once I turned the Xbox off, life was back to, crap for me. My son's he's 2 and 4 months, 2 years and 4 months. The depression started right away, but I learned like 3 years prior to that is when things really were getting bad. And I just wish I knew more from the start. And I wish we had that stigma was gone, because I suffered a lot by myself and it sucked. And I know a lot of people do as well, and we need to, as I transition from my personal story to just mental health in general, we need to make sure we check in on people, especially your friends, and really ask them if they are okay. Right. And then not give the nonchalant, yeah, things are great, things are fine. Really have a good conversation with your friend, with your best friend. Take them out for a drink, get them loosened up a little bit, and start prying. And they may not be willing to talk. Just start prying a little bit and trying if you can open the jar, because once you open the jar, things are going to start spilling out. I hope what people take away from this is, again, I hope you guys can start chiming in here a little bit more. The postpartum depression for a guy is real, and I experienced it greatly. We're so focused on the woman having the postpartum, and rightfully so. They are the sole caretaker of the kid. They just carried this thing for 9 months. They got to feed it all the time. They got to care for it. They got to love it. And they have these expectations as a quote unquote mother to deal for this kid. And I can easily see how a mom can hit postpartum in a snap. And they go through the same stuff. What does she have to be depressed about? They have this beautiful child. Isn't it just light up your day? That's not how this works. That is not how any of this works. It takes a joint effort between the dad and the mom. The dad's, the financial provider, or make sure everything's okay and cleans up out of the house, helps with the mom, get the diapers, do the diaper changes and get the clothes and do the laundry and do all that stuff. And guys, if you're listening, do it. You're supposed to. Don't be a douchebag. Do the diaper changes. Get up and do the feedings. If she's breastfeeding, all she can do, the least you can do is get up and get her a pillow, get her a drink of water, do something. Don't just stay asleep all the time. Take an active role in actually raising the kid and being a dad. And ladies, check in on your man too, because he could be struggling just like I did. And as much, neither one of you has an excuse to be pissed at the other, or has an excuse to say, well, I do X, Y, Z, and you only do A and B. That's not how this works. You got to have that conversation, and you got to make sure the guy is doing okay, because that kid, best chances is you two working together to love it equally and give it the abundance of love that it needs. You two fighting is not going to help the situation at all. So if you think if you think the dad's doing bad, or if you are doing bad, see somebody, start talk. I don't care if it's talking to your friends. If you don't want to talk to your parents, or you don't want to talk to whoever, you can talk to me if you're having this circumstance right now, and use it as a guide. For myself, medications were talked about, going on antidepressants or some type of psychotic medication. And I wouldn't let it happen, but that's a personal choice of myself. I didn't want to be having some type of drug interact with my mind. I wanted to have this clear conscience. And I found other ways to try and help myself get out of the funks. Because the way they describe it to me is, okay, you have these highs and these lows, and all that antidepressant does is stop the lows from getting so low. Okay, and just kind of keep you up. And I'm like, that's not fixing anything. That's not helping anything. But don't, again, if you're listening to this, if you think you need meds, seriously talk to the doctor about it. Talk to your psychologist, because sometimes the meds are very important, and you want to avoid any kind of self-harm or really spiraling down out of control, and the meds are going to be there to help you balance. I myself didn't think I needed it, and I figured out ways to do it.
But
just
don't
get
you think
the right help.
That's more of a quick fix to a lot of people? Is, just prescribe me something and it'll make me feel better, and I can kind of just push whatever's happening aside. And really think, like what you did, like try to actually find what's going on. What can I do?
And I think that's what it is. I think the meds should be used as the quick fix to avoid things getting from being dramatically worse. Just because you're on meds doesn't mean you just can stop seeing your therapist or stop trying to find alternative methods around the therapy. For one thing for myself was, we figure out, okay, when you're playing with your kid, really play with your kid. Put the phone down, enjoy them, watch the laughter. And that's one thing that I did. Like, I had to force myself to play with my son. And like, how do you play with a 4-month-old or a 6-month-old? They don't do anything. They just lay on their back and they hit up at their toys and stuff. But you just interact with them. And slowly what started happening for me was those little moments that were once just indispensable. Like, they were nothing. Like, they started becoming memories, and they started becoming important parts. And you start seeing the progression from saying this is nothing to this was kind of cool. And that was one step that I took to get to where I needed, to where I am now.
I think you're checking in on people. I think that's huge. I don't think we check in on. I think we talk to enough people. I don't think we check in with enough people, right? Like you said, I think we just generically ask, "Hey, how are you doing? Good. All right, cool. Let's keep it going." I had a buddy in college. His name was Kadeem, and he would ask us, "How are you?" And we would be like, "Yeah, we're good." And he'd be like, No, like, we're going to stop here in the courtyard, and you're going to tell me how you are. And I used to find it so annoying sometimes, because I'm like, dude, I'm late for like my PE class. Like, I got to go play flag football. I can't talk about how I'm doing, But I see he cared enough about me and about everybody that he did that with, that he was checking in on them and saying like, "Hey, how are you doing?" Because I care, and if you're not doing well, let's talk about it, And I think that's huge. And the more I look back on that, I think the more everybody needs a Kadeem in their life to ask them and check in with them and say, hey, like, what's going on? You know?
And you got to be able to recognize the times out of the norm. You know, and for example, me and WD never call each other. We text. Christian, you and I have talked more on the phone than me and WD have in like 7 years.
That's probably fair.
Okay.
I'm a phone caller.
We've talked
I can't help it.
we've talked. Yeah. So the times when we have called each other, it's an instant, what the hell's wrong?
Yep.
Or what's the big news? Or what is it like? You need to like what if I see him call me, it's either like, okay, he's either butt dialing me or we got something big we got to talk about. right. So, cause we just text all day long. So you got to pick out those outside the box stuff that your friends do that can help trigger action. Mm-hmm. Right. And I know not everybody wants to talk to their parents, and I'm one of them. You know, my mom knows I was in therapy, but I just told her maybe a month ago that I saw one, and she doesn't know the details. But she said too, you can always talk to me. No, you can't. There's stuff you just don't talk to your parents about, or you don't talk to your kids or your spouses, whatever. So, and a lot of times friends are the first ones to get the information.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm kind of my mom. I know she'll always be there, and I actually talk to my mom about a lot of stuff. I kind of experienced some depression too in my life, and there's a few times recently where I went to my mom and I was like, "Yo, like I can't talk. like I need you to sit here and listen to me while you're in the office, And that's a huge blessing because we can get into that more. But my mom had cancer when I was a kid, and I'm just happy to be able to talk to her now. So I think that's why I talk to her a lot more about my stuff, because I think every day I see my mom, it's a blessing,
And that could be. I mean, everyone's got a different person. For me, my wife, she's a good one to talk to, but there's someone that I'm not going to name that I talk to about problems very frequently. And they have been great at like keeping me grounded and keeping me sane. Mm-hmm. And what's great about this person is like nobody knows they exist in my life, which is fantastic. And so, maybe there's someone like that you have who you can just go and talk to, who has been there for, has been through experiences like yours and able to kind of, at the bare minimum, just kind of keep your head on straight a little bit. And this person, I don't talk to him frequently. I mean, I talked to him more, in the previous couple of years, but current day, I don't talk to him that much, but it doesn't matter if I send them a message, I get a return, and I get advice, and I don't get just shoved away, which is great.
Well, it's good to have that outside person that doesn't, not necessarily they don't know you, but they don't have a bias maybe of,
exactly.
If you're thinking of your parents, for instance, it's like, they knew you when you were a little kid, you grew up, right. All these experiences, and parents are great to go to for advice on things and all, but sometimes you need that person outside. Yeah, mm-hmm. Exactly.
You need the one who didn't know you growing up, who didn't know you as a kid,
and those people, if you have somebody like that, or even a therapist, for instance, they have experiences that you've never experienced, or maybe even people in your family have never experienced, so they could give you the advice. They may, mm-hmm. or they may know someone that has something similar that can help you.
That actually happened with my my therapist. I've actually had two. The one moved to a different office, not with the new. So the first one I had, she had a dad who kind of went through similar circumstances that I did. And she drew in a lot of his experiences to tell me, and it was a great help. and they're good at their job because of, they're good, and I'm amazed at what these therapists and psychologists can draw out. It's great.
Well, yeah.
It's really good.
And I think it's good that we talk about this and bring this all up, because I think it's not talked about enough.
And I don't want to bore people with like the really small details of things. And I'm sure I'm going to get messages from people saying, "How come you didn't say nothing?" And it's like,
right.
It's just hard. It's hard to talk and say that in person. So I hope this gets out there, and then I hope from here on out I can help, or able to talk about my experience more, a little bit more detail. And I'm sure I'm missing out of a bunch of details from my experience, but it sucked. No doubt about it. So, but everything's all great now. I adore my son. We play all the time. He's getting really good at the basketball hoop.
I was about to say that. I was like, he's a hooper, man. We hear him all the time hooping.
He shoots all day long. He's got his little plastic golf set. We have a good time. So I am nowhere near where I was before. I'm in a much better place now. And, instead of having 8-10 balls I'm juggling, I'm now juggling 2. And that makes things a whole hell of a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. And that's great. And I think that's a huge light at the end of the tunnel for a lot of people who are just, going into it, right? To know that, you most definitely get to a point where you can laugh about it, and get to a point where you could say, sigh, that's over. Let's move on to a better time. Right. And I think that's really good for us. I don't really have anything else to say. Dubs, you got any closing comments before the famous Dub Nugget dropped?
Dub Nugget. No, I do think I've had some experiences in my life in the past few years that I think mental health is something that needs to be spoken more. It's kind of I still think even to this day it's kind of a taboo subject, if you will. Like I said earlier in the show, there's a stigmatism around if someone's going to a therapist, you just think they're just batshit crazy or just they just can't help themselves, and that's not the case for most of the time. It's just someone who's actually seeking to make themselves better. And I think with Kip's story being out there, it's for anyone listening, I hope it really does help.
Yes.
Either get you to someone that you can confide in, to just let it out if that's what you need, or someone that you can seek advice from.
Yeah, and if anyone that there does need to talk, or they do need advice, or what's the first steps, message me on Facebook if you're friends with me. If you're friends with Christian or Dubs, message them. They'll get you connected with me. One way or another, we'll help you out the best that we can.
And if if you're not friends with us, we have an email, confusedgentlemen@gmail.com. Email us, and we'll still talk to you through that.
Yeah, and I'm more than happy to talk with people individually, or again, if you have questions and you want us to, or want me to answer them on a separate pod, I have no problem doing that as well. So send us your questions, your comments, whatever, and hoping you can do that. But I do want to thank you guys again for letting me sabotage the show for this episode. I'm sure each of us will have an experience like this where the show's about them in the future, but this was important for me to get out. I've been wanting to do it here for a year and a half, 2 years. So thank you very much.
Glad we could do it for you. Glad you could sabotage the show.
100%.
So enough about me. Let's get that nugget, Dub, and we can get out of here and move on with our Labor Day weekend.
Yeah. So this comes from the great country of Iceland. Okay.
It's actually not covered in ice. Fun fact.
Yeah, it's very nice. So this will actually help people in Alabama too. So here we go. Yep. So Iceland has a dating app that stops you from hooking up with your cousin.
No way.
If you are from Alabama, remember this is a joke. You don't need to comment or message or get us
don't at me.
Don't at us.
No, yeah, the Dub Nuggets are little fun, quirky things. They may be
They
may be something related to the show topic or not. So
that is not. Well, I assume if you found match with your cousin, you may need some mental health. So
maybe, hey, there it is, ties in a little, there it is. Well, guys, I appreciate, the topic we're talking about. Kip, thanks for opening up, allowing us to talk about your story and everything going on in your life from then and now. But hey, guys, thanks for tuning in for the Confused Gentleman podcast. Again, it's Kip, Dub, and I, Christian. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode, guys. See ya. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.